Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about Emerald Hill in Singapore and the little bits of elusive history surrounding the area. So what most of us today may or may not know about Emerald Hill is it's that hip little street just off of the Orchard Road shopping belt with its 19th century Peranakan style shophouses. Since the announcement of the site as a conservation area in 1985, Emerald Hill has continued to attract tourists and locals alike, not just for its historical architecture, but for its chill hangout bars and Instagrammable location. Well, most of us know how Orchard Road was formerly an area of orchid plantations, but few of us know who to really thank for how Emerald Hill came about to what it is today. Before the architecture started to fill out the area in the 1900s, the whole area of Orchard Road, Coed Road, and Emerald Hill belonged to just one man, Captain William Cuppage. Now, there isn't much on him, being quite an elusive character in history, but here is my artistic impression of him and what I found out so far. Captain William Cuppage was born in Ireland to Lieutenant Colonel William Cuppage of the Bengal Army and his housekeeper, Elizabeth Ramsay. He also had a brother, Captain Adam Cuppage, who was once assistant resident of Singapore. He was a captain of the 27th Madras Native Infantry under the Honourable British East Indian Company. Cuppage was an early settler in colonial Singapore, and although it's unknown when exactly he arrived, it is possible that he was sent here by the East Indian Company to increase their military powers in the East Indies, possibly around 1829 in official records. In one source, it apparently suggests that Cuppage earned his role through connections rather than skill, and he left his position in the 1840s to be a postal clerk and later on acting postmaster general. But before that, he was able to accumulate enough money to buy so much land within the European town of the Jackson Plan. Possibly corruption? In 1837, this whole area was temporarily leased to him before he was given a permanent grant in 1845. A whole 13.2 hectares of land. That being said, Emerald Hill was a barren, hilly area at that point, having been put through shifting cultivation of gambia plants by Chinese settlers. Like other land-owning Europeans in the area, Cuppage experimented with growing his own crop, namely nutmeg, which sadly failed in the 1860s. The only two houses he built, Erin Lodge and Fern Cottage, now demolished, were probably built in the style of Art Deco as influenced by the other wealthy European peers of his community. But it was really only after his death that Emerald Hill began the gradual development to what it is today. Cuppage's son-in-law, Edwin Coed, took over the land before becoming bankrupt as a result of crop failure, forcing him to subdivide and sell off the land to wealthy streets-born Chinese and Peranakans. The 38 plots continued to divide and change with ownership. As most of the new tenants were Chinese, they built homes reflective of their wealth, taking from traditional Chinese architecture, Peranakan details, and some Art Deco influences. As such, it is not really correct to call the houses Peranakan or Chinese Baroque style. Rather, it is more of a fusion style of shophouse. Part of Emerald Hill once housed the former Singapore Chinese Girls' School, which is now Chatsworth International School. And today, Emerald Hill is an upscale residential area mainly populated by expatriates, like how it had been home to wealthier Peranakans and straight-born Chinese. There's a lot to appreciate about Emerald Hill Road as you walk along the line of houses. Cuppage himself came as a settler and hence influenced the ownership of the land over the years, bringing it from a failed farmland to a thriving area for business and modern tourism. While most of Emerald Hill today is really more of a quaint residential area in the middle of town, it's still fun to explore away from the hustle and bustle of the city, within the city, and perhaps also to shoot a couple of Instagram photos. Thank you! Bye-bye! Oh, I'm accidentally misleading. Have fun. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is perhaps like the after vlog session, a review of maybe what I've done for this part of the vlog. Oh man, it was a lot harder than I expected, trying to compress all the information that I found out into this. And it's true that there isn't a lot out there for William Cuppage, his family, what exact influences. But I think it's interesting to think about how someone else's history will intersect with our lives today. So maybe we think of ourselves as like small fry and not much, but I think what we always do will most certainly affect. So perhaps to say this piece of land that did not belong to anybody, it was not legally owned by anybody in the 1920s. Was leased out to this person. If not for William Cuppage, it would not have been sold to Edwin Cowick. And if not for Edwin Cowick going bankrupt, he would not have had to sell it off to many people. And without the numerous amounts of these Chinese merchants and Peranakan merchants, you would not have all these smaller rows of houses with great depth, great architecture, interesting verandas and things like that. Most certainly it's easier to blabber it off like this, but I wanted the video to be a bit neater, in fact. So I did write out, and maybe it wasn't as smooth as I hoped it would be, especially since I talk mostly in this manner. It was fun making it, most certainly stressful, because there was a lot of information that you couldn't get online. It was my first time doing this kind of history digging, not being a history major, just loving art history only. But yeah, I guess it makes me appreciate Singapore history a little more. And I never knew how the knowing Raffles Jackson plan was actually even important in my life. Cue the secondary school, social studies, primary school history kind of thing. Didn't like that back then. I guess this is when you are actually curious about things, you would go and find out. So how it really intersects with our life? Well, it is quite interesting per se, because it's still a street for wealthy people. A disclaimer, so all the presented materials were based off of my independent research, and due to time constraint and for the sake of a neat video, I did not put in a lot of the information and background knowledge that it might require to perhaps really get a firmer grasp on what was the timeline of this whole thing. Because perhaps to say Cuppage had held a lot more positions when I just briefly mentioned his role, but not exactly maybe what he did. And some of these were speculations, so I will say that they are speculations on my part. Although I do think that it is a pretty interesting experience to go down there, not just for footage, but like consider like where I'm there in a heritage area. Do I feel the history? It's quite a cool thing to think about. It's like when you're at a historical place, do I really feel the history? Well, there are some monuments that really just stick out and make you feel that way, and some that have been so modernized in a way that is the whole region has been integrated into this kind of consumerist culture in that area that we kind of overlook it, and it's just become something for our eyes to see, not so much for us to appreciate for history. And I think that's about it lah. So this is like late night work. No other time I can do it without any other noise. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed some of the information that I've given, and yeah, hope that I can actually make more projects like this because this was fun. Bye bye!